How's it going?
Amazingly well, brother. How are you?
Very fine, Naveen. Okay, Naveen. So this is going to be a fast-paced conversation. You and I already know what we want to talk about. Again, just a reminder, there's the whole of smartest Indian youth watching you right now, live, and they couldn't be more piqued in their interest to learn from you, to dig into your brain, to understand how do you really, what's your worldview, how do you think about things on various topics that are relevant to us currently, that will be relevant to us in the future, and of course your story. Let's start with your story. I mean, what's your story? The earliest media mention that I could find about you was about during the 90s you founded a company called Infospace that shot you to a multi-billion dollar valuation in a couple of years. But who is really Naveen?
Well, to me, I'm an entrepreneur who is curious, who really believes that everything is possible. And the only thing that can't be done by human being is something that we believe is impossible. So each one of us sets a limit to what we can achieve in our life. And whether we call that sky is that limit, and that sky for you could be something right near you, or it could be something far away from you. But our limitations are set by our imagination, and there's nothing else that actually limits us to what we can achieve.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So Naveen, when I look in when I talk about imagination and I talk about sky, the next natural thing that comes to my mind is, for a lot of humans, the peak of imagination is the space, the outer space.
Yeah.
And you seem to be peaking in your curiosity and interest and initiatives about the space as an industry, building a business in that for exploration. What's that about? What's Moon Express about?
Well, I mean, if you look at we as humans are explorers. We conquered the 7 continents on our planet Earth, right? And then we somehow start to think of something away from our planet is outside of us. And if we start to think of a moon as our near continent, our eighth continent, right? So if moon is the eighth continent, why would we not explore it? But the fundamentally reason for going to space is very different. All of us, 7.4 billion of us, live on a single spacecraft we call planet Earth. What if our spacecraft gets damaged because we get hit by a large asteroid? It's not that the planet won't survive. Planet would do just fine. The human species will not survive, right? And that is the fundamental problem. Is a lot of us are so egotistic. We always say, I am worried about our planet. Don't worry about the planet. Worry about your fellow human species, right? Because when 65 million years ago, when a large asteroid hit planet Earth, all the dinosaurs got wiped out, and they were substantially larger creature than us. The planet did just fine. In fact, planet produced a very intelligent species after dinosaur we call human beings. That even after human beings get wiped out, we never know. It may be a superhuman beings that end up coming after us. But if you want to protect our fellow humans, we have to go beyond our spacecraft to be on other spacecraft. And the reason I prefer moon at the first stepping stone than say Mars or somewhere else is that, remember, living on a planet that's away from planet Earth is a challenge. And you have to learn to live on a planet that's not planet Earth. About how do we live on lava tubes, how do we live when there is less gravity, how do we live on a place where you may not be able to figure out how do we grow food, right? And then you have to ask yourself, why do we even eat food, right? Why do we need food? And point is, if you're going to be living away from planet Earth, isn't this better to be a lunatic 3 days away than to be a Martian 6 months away? I mean, so to me, that's the first stepping stone. Then you want to go to the Mars, but then you actually want to be moving away from our solar system, because it's a matter of time before our sun implodes. Then what? So you want to be on other solar system. In fact, you want to be moving away from our own galaxy into a totally different galaxy, so you can actually spread the human species, and someday we can recreate the human species on whichever planet we want. And I think why limit to the, within our universe? Why not just go beyond our universe into the multiverse? And you could argue that with a quantum entanglement, there is already a past of Naveen and the future of Naveen living in some, probably in multiverse somewhere already.
Wow, damn. You spoke, I mean, you spoke about space, but towards the end you linked it to multiverse. That's a whole new dimension out there. And folks, for those of you who've not gotten into these theories, who don't know what multiverse is, what universe is, it's a different journey. It's a different curiosity trip on its own. Maybe go to YouTube tab and search what is multiverse, and then come back to this video, because Naveen spoke about something really deep. Okay, fantastic. So Naveen, your argument is that humans can get extinct. I mean, species have gotten extinct in the past. There's
Yeah,
a theory that a meteorite, asteroid hit
yeah,
the Earth, and that's why dinosaurs died. And so space exploration is inevitable, right? And
yeah.
why would it's safer to go somewhere nearby, where if things go wrong, you can come back, okay, faster in the, back to the Earth space. You're experimenting slow and small. So, while you tell me about these concepts, or future possible realities, there's humans. There are humans transporting somewhere, inhabiting a certain land, and then building ecosystem around them. I smell business here. I smell
Hmm?
an industry here. I smell, yeah, legit probably money to be made here, perhaps 50 years down the line. How have you thought of space as a business? Where's the business in
Of
space?
course. Well, there are many, many businesses in space. At the end of the day, if you look at just the natural resources, right, everything that we are mining are actually mining the asteroids that hit the planet Earth in the early days of the forming of the Earth, right? Now, if you just were to look up, our Earth is invisible in our solar system. It is just a tiny floating dot in our own solar system. Our solar system is invisible in our galaxy. Our galaxy is invisible into our universe. I mean, even just in a Milky Way, you can't even find our galaxy somewhere, right? So point is, we are such tiny small fraction of we call home. These trillions of dollars on each asteroid. I mean, if you just were to look at any asteroid, they could be worth trillions of dollars. An asteroid that's full of diamonds, an asteroid that's full of every resource that you want. The water would be actually the most precious resource when you go to space, because water means H2O, that's hydrogen and oxygen. And now you have a fuel. So you can have a fuel depots along the way while you're exploring the space. You can create these fuel depots. So to me, the first trillionaires are going to be created in space exploration, right? Space is so massive. There's so many resources out there, and everything, if you look at all the wealth that has been created on planet Earth, that is such a tiny place. Now imagine all the wealth that could be created just being on all of these different stars, different solar system, different places. So I really think there is going to be a whole new industry that is going to be created. And both for, a lot of the times people ask me, say, there are so many problems on planet Earth, why go to space, right? And the answer to that is a mindset of scarcity, that if you say, if you do this, you can't do that. Answer is, when given a choice, do both. You can explore the space, and you can still solve the problem of planet Earth. So I have a company that does a space exploration, and then I have a company that takes care of the people on Earth itself, which is healthcare, right? So you explore the trillions of organisms inside your gut, and then you explore the trillions of stars out in the space.
Super interesting. So, okay, understood. There's probably Earth-like, or bigger than Earth potential of
Yeah.
forming an industry in the outer planets, because obvious reasons. But what do you think? Where do you think is the space industry? Is space tourism possible? What's happening in the next 5-10 years? Where's the
Oh my God,
commercials?
absolutely. Oh my God! At least within half a decade, you will have the hotels in space. In fact, the space tourism is going to start happening later this year or early next year. So both Virgin Galactic and Blue Origin, both are going to have the space right. So you'll be able to go space, you mean above 100 kilometers, you'll be able to go experience the zero gravity and see the curvature of the earth. And it will change the perspective, because then you start to see we are not just this flat earth, we are this tiny globe that just floating in the space naked. I mean, it's literally anything can hit you. And anybody who's watched Star Wars or Star Trek probably know how these things are just flying all over. And it's a matter of time before you get hit by something, right? So just the seeing the planet, our planet Earth from above, that shows that all the divisions that we create, we call the geographical boundaries, called countries, they really don't exist. And I think entrepreneurs know that already. Entrepreneurs know there is no geographical boundaries in terms of cooperation. Here, you and I are in a completely different part of our planet and still having the same conversation. In fact, today, it doesn't matter where you are. You have access to the same minds anywhere, because you can have this conversation anywhere you are. You have access to the same science, because same journals that you read in Silicon Valley, you can read them in India and in Mumbai. There is same capital that is available in Silicon Valley is available in Mumbai. So capital is not patriotic. Capital flows where the opportunities are. And entrepreneurs don't know the boundaries, because they will work with a person in China if that person, smart person, can help them do the AI, or they will work with a person in Delhi or Mumbai or Bangalore. They don't really care, because as long as the problem is getting solved. So I think that once we start to look at the space, we start to see how tiny our planet is, and why do we even fight over these things?
Again, a deep message there. So, reflecting back on humanity, and you spoke about, okay, we're taking care of under the companies that you've started. You say you were taking care of the humans on Earth, as well as exploring, for cool name sake, is alternate planets, or alternate habitable planets. So about the healthcare aspect, we're in the middle
Yeah.
of a healthcare crisis, and you
Yes.
said you are working on something innovative. Gut health is what you're exploring. What is gut health about, and how do you generally think about healthcare?
Yeah. So first of all, despite in the middle of this pandemic of infectious disease for COVID-19, the SARS-CoV-2, we have not had an infectious disease pandemic for 100 years. This is a once in 100-year phenomenon. But every single day, the humanity has an epidemic of chronic diseases. People are dying every day from heart disease. They die from cancers, right? They die from obesity. They die from diabetes. They die from autoimmune diseases. They die from dementia, Alzheimer, and all the diseases that we are facing every single day. These are called chronic diseases. Fortunately, the chronic diseases is something we can prevent and reverse. These are not something we are born with. 90% of all diseases that we suffer as humanity, these are lifestyle choices we make. So when I started Viome, we say, imagine living in a world where being sick is a choice. And it was a very provocative statement saying, can illness be optional? And the reason was, to me, it's not a matter of bad luck that you get diseased. It is a matter of bad choices we make that gets us to be sick. And sometimes these bad choices are knowingly, but more often than not, these are unknowingly, right? So some people know smoking causes lung cancer, and they still smoke. That's a knowing self-inflicted wound. More often than not, people think they are eating healthy without realizing they may be actually causing themselves harm. So I started a company called Viome, and we analyze what's happening inside your body. So we look at 39 trillion microorganisms. What are they doing in your gut? We look at your blood to see how they are changing the human gene expression. We look at your saliva to see, before you even chew your food, how that's going to be pre-processed before it goes into your gut. And based on that, we can say, don't eat spinach because it is going to harm you. And here is the reason, because your oxalate in the spinach is not being digested by your gut microbiome. Don't eat cabbage. right? Or don't eat Brussels sprout, or don't eat broccoli because it's going to be harming you because the sulfate in broccoli is not being digested and there is a lot of sulfide production in your gut already from these microbes. So we can tell you specifically what foods to eat and why, what foods not to eat and why, what are the nutrients your body need, and we make those capsules on demand for each individual, right? So that's basically a complete customized tailor-made nutrition for each individual that allows you to reduce the inflammation in the body, that gets rid of the things we call diseases, whether it is acne or eczema in the skin disease, or it could be the bloating and the gut health, IBS, IBD, mental health like depression or anxiety. And we see that simply changing your body, the nutrition you eat, the things we call mental health, the skin health, your immune health, all of them can improve. And in fact, now there is a lot of research, Abhinav, that shows that when people immune system is good, even if they catch COVID, they don't get sick and they don't go to the hospital because their immune system is active enough to be able to deal with the infection, right? So the end of the day, my belief is that despite today, COVID looks like a black mark on humanity. And I'm going to tell you something that most people are going to not like. 10 years from now, when we look back at that thing now, it is going to be the pivotal moment, the inflection point in human history, where we think we advanced the human history by a decade. Because of COVID, the silver lining is we started to now have telehealth that may not have been around for 10 years. Because of this, we learned to have remote education that may not have been around for 10 years. Because of this, we as people starting to believe that we can in fact have something to do with our health. What are people doing? They want to take supplements to boost their immunity. They're working out, they're staying healthy. It used to be, I do what I do. When I get sick, I go to the hospital. COVID taught us last thing you want to do is to get sick and go to the hospital, right? That's not what you look forward to anymore. People are realizing that when they do some actions, they have health consequences. This year, there was no flu. Now imagine that for a second. We used to believe flu is inevitable. Everyone come fall and winter, there is going to be flu. And this year taught us there was just no flu because people wore masks, people maintained social distancing, flu disappeared. Now we know that means catching a flu and stopping a flu is a choice we make, not something that's inevitable to us because we are humans. And that's really the big thing, I think. Once we learn that our actions have health consequences, everything changes.
Okay, so 2020, amongst other things, other amongst digitization of the world
Yeah,
and whatnot, you're saying a crucial change is happening in the global consumer mindset. That is, we started
yeah,
taking health seriously,
that's
and that will spill onto preventive healthcare as well. I don't
right.
want illness, right? Like,
Yes,
okay, I don't want to have it and then cure it. I don't want illness. So
yeah,
can we call the entire field of gut microbiome, for those of
yeah,
you who don't know, is uh, a segment of medicine that is very wide, and I think Naveen can shed more light upon why gut microbiome is really serious, and how you can diagnose multiple illnesses via it by doing a check on your gut microbiome. What does gut microbiome mean is basically the microorganisms, microbes in your gut, and they do a lot of functions. So doing a test on them gives you your own profile, and based on your own profile, you can diagnose so many current, existing, potential, and future diseases, and you can custom diagnose and custom cure them based on the products that Biome makes. So what is the extent? I mean, you're seeing, obviously, Naveen, you're seeing, because of 2020, a wide market open for you because people are
yeah,
going to get serious, right? And they're going to switch to all forms of healthcare. Are you preventive
yeah.
healthcare? And that is my question one. Second is, what are the, I mean, you mentioned a few diseases. You were like eczema, mental health, depression, some other things. What is the scope of the diseases that can be solved via gut microbiome? How wide is it?
Sure. So first of all, this is something not that we invented here. This is not something we learned something now. 2,500 years ago, a Greek doctor named Hippocrates, What did he say? He says all diseases begin in the gut. Let food be thy medicine, let thy medicine be the food. And the contemporary doctor said, one man's food is another man's poison. They knew a food that's good for you, just because lentils are good for you doesn't mean lentils are good for someone else. Just because turmeric is good for you doesn't mean it's good for someone else. And what we learned actually was, very interestingly, there is no such thing as universal healthy food, and there is no such thing as universal healthy supplement. Even though turmeric or curcumin, people think, oh my God, it is a magic. It works for everyone. Why shouldn't everyone eat that? Well, interestingly, curcumin is good for some people, but if you have a problem with the bile salt, it converts the bile acid into bile salt. You shouldn't be taking that. So if you have too much bile salt, you shouldn't be taking curcumin. A lot of people say, why won't you take vitamin B? Vitamin B is good for everyone. Well, guess what? If vitamin B3, niacin, is bad for you if you have high uric acid, because it's going to turn into lots of gall and a whole bunch of other issues if you have that. So interestingly, everything like NAD and NMN, people think, oh, people should take NAD supplement because it increases longevity. That's the last thing you want when you have a high cellular senescence or high inflammation in your body. It's going to actually harm you. So point I'm trying to make is that by simply learning about gut microbiome, you can in fact now connect the gut to the skin. So acne, eczema, gut to the brain, which is through the vagus nerve, depression, anxiety, autism, Alzheimer, Parkinson's. And now we know that in fact, Parkinson's starts in the gut 15 years before you see the symptom. Alzheimer, the early signs of Alzheimer comes to be actually constipation, right? The depression and anxiety gets cured by simply looking at your gut and the right nutrition. In fact, if you know, when you have anxiety, you get the butterflies in your stomach, right? So my point is, mother used to always say, listen to your gut. She was the scientist. What did she know when she said, listen to your gut? That means that's where all the information lies. And if I may say to my fellow Indians, look at Brahma. The life starts from the navel. Is that means the life is actually starts from the gut microbiome. And it's very interesting, when the baby is born, the first few days of the breast milk that a baby gets, it is full of oligosaccharide, which is a fiber that cannot be digested by the human body. That means there is no nutrition gets to the human body. It is simply there to feed the gut microbiome. So think for a second. What nature is telling is, I created this offspring, and the best way to keep it healthy is to not to feed it, but to feed them. That them is part of our ecosystem, symbiotic relationship, because human body has outsourced the functions to them. And when you feed them well, they release the vitamins, they release the short chain fatty acid like butyrates and stuff that keeps our body healthy. So to me, the microbes are not foreign, they are well within us. And now, by the way, I've now some very interesting things we've done. We now can see the cancers. The microbiome is inside the every tumor of the cancer. In fact, just last week, we got the FDA approval to actually have a breakthrough device to be able to diagnose oral cancer and throat cancer at the 97% earliest stages, stage 1 oral cancer. And in India, it's a big problem because people chewing tobacco. There is a massive problem of oral cancer and throat cancer. And now we can diagnose that just with the saliva. So what we are doing is, you asked me what is we are trying to do. Our goal is the prevention, making sure if you come to us early, we can prevent it before you ever get sick. Second is, as you do multiple tests, we can predict it. Are you moving towards a disease or moving away from a disease? So we can predict that, hey, I'm going to change your lifestyle because you're starting to get to a point where you're going to have a heart disease, or you're going to have a diabetes, or by the way, you're moving towards cancer, start changing your lifestyle. Third is, if you do catch it, can we diagnose it early enough when we can intercept it and actually get rid of it? And the fourth is, you come to us late, we say, you do have this disease. And by the way, can we develop the right set of personalized drugs and personalized vaccines just for you to be able to get rid of the disease? So my hope is, within a decade, we'll get rid of cancer. Within the next 10 to 15 years, I think the illness will be optional. That means we will get to decide if we want to be sick or not. And when we say, why would anybody want to be sick? There are a lot of people, you tell them, don't eat that gulab jamun. They're going to say, I'm sorry, I would love my gulab jamun and give me ras malai on top of that, right? But that's a choice you make. There's nothing we didn't say we can create a world where no one is sick. Remember the choice is the word I said. Imagine living in a world where illness is a choice. That means you can have a power not to be sick. I don't have a power to make sure no one is sick.
Okay, so you spoke about the fact that you're basically trying to tell me that it's crazily wide, the spectrum of diseases that we
Yeah,
can diagnose, interject, or intervene in
yeah,
at any stages. It goes all the way from cancer to diabetes to whatnot. And if
yeah,
that is the case, and you also said that one man's food can be another's poison, and lentils may suit someone, lentils may not suit the other person. And when
yeah.
doctors in the current healthcare system, when doctors are
Mhm.
prescribing medicine and dietitians or nutritionists are giving you nutrition, it absolutely, I mean, it's I mean, going by what you just told me, it's fairly stupid to do it without knowing the person's gut
It is.
scan. I mean, you might
There
you're
is.
just there's no one size fits all at all here.
That's
If
right.
it is at
There is
as
no
you,
magic.
yeah.
There is no magic bullet. There is no magic silver bullet. The nutritionists say everyone should eat less of bread and more of this. You don't know that because same two people who, in fact, who are identical twins, they have a completely different response to different food because their gut microbiomes are completely different. So to me, it's crazy to think the same food is good for everyone, same food is, or same medicine is good for everyone. That's the reason even the drugs that are approved by FDA, if you ever look at their efficacy, it is 20, 22, 25%. What does that really mean? That means 75% of the people have no effect and only harmed by them. 75% of the people are only harmed and it does no good. So how can you possibly think the same medicine will work? So the world will change where the medicines are going to be designed for each individual, where each individual is going to be personalized. And I think the future is going to be that, if you need a particular antibody, you will be able to get the mRNA, which is a new four-letter word that everyone is starting to learn from Pfizer and Moderna. By the way, Biome is the only company that has been doing the mRNA for the last 5 years. We are the first mRNA and the only mRNA company. So we know this four-letter word really, really well. So in the future, we'll be able to inject the right
Sorry,
mRNA in
why
your
is
body.
mRNA picking up? Why is it a trend in these days? You're in healthcare, so you understand. Maybe
Yeah. So
elucidate.
yeah, so very interesting. So people know about DNA.
Hmm.
And the interestingly is DNA is what like human genes we get from our mom and dad. Interestingly, your DNA never changes when you develop a disease. So if I can do your DNA test today and then you gain 200 pounds, your DNA is still the same. Now you become depressed, your DNA is still the same. Now you have heart disease, your DNA never changes. But what does change? Your genes don't change, but your gene expression is always changing. And the way to measure the gene expression is the messenger RNA. So what messenger RNA does is it goes into your cell and it creates the protein or the precursor to protein. So messenger RNA is how amino acids or enzymes are produced, which become protein. And that's literally what happens when you inject a COVID-19 vaccines, which has mRNA. It goes into our cell and produces the protein very similar to as if you got infected by a coronavirus. Our immune system sees that protein, creates the antibody, and now, in fact, when you do get infected, your immune system has ready to go bind to that protein and kill the coronavirus. And that's literally how vaccines work. Now, imagine if you can do that for every cancer. You look at the cancer and you see specifically what is the protein or a peptide on top of the tumor, and you inject the mRNA that actually will mimic that thing, antibody, and boom, the immune system will attack the cancer. Right, and those are exactly the kind of things that you'll be able to do on one day when you go to a doctor. They will analyze you and they will inject the mRNA, and that will be specifically designed for your cancer, your disease, your diabetes, your heart disease.
Okay, individualized medicine is coming. Should be here already because it doesn't make sense
in
otherwise.
our in our lifetime we're going to get that up now. In our lifetime we're going to be able to do that, and I think that's the thing what I love about is that 5 years ago, I didn't know anything about DNA or RNA, and here I am now actually feeling that within a decade, we could solve this problem. So to me, the humanity has an unbelievable power when we come together and pool our resources, pool our data, because data is the key here. This is a big data problem. Once we can digitize the human body, we can now understand what causes people to have a disease, and then we can go do something about it. So to me, that is the key, is to have a massive amount of data and AI, and then personalized and precise medicine on top of that.
Wow. And my bells are ringing in the sense I see a big market here in the sense. And I remember earlier in the conversation you spoke about there'll be $1 trillion market, or there'll be a trillionaire. We've seen individuals who are billionaires, companies who've touched
Yeah,
the $1 trillion
yeah,
market cap. You're telling me there can be a trillionaire, a human with $1 trillion
yes.
net worth, and which industry is that likely to be made in?
But
Of
it's
course.
really simple. I mean, yeah, and I think, Abhinav, I know your question. First of all, think about it. The best way to create a $1 trillion industry is to do things that will help a billion people live a better life, right? That's all it is. So if you can focus on helping billion people live a better life, you can create a massive, massive enterprise at the same time. So you don't go out and create a $1 trillion company because you want to create a $1 trillion company. It's a byproduct. It's an outcome of helping people live better. Now, what are the biggest problems that are massive problem, not 100 billion, not a trillion, multi-trillion-dollar problem? Look at education, healthcare, energy, water, access to fresh water, fresh clean water. I mean, every one of them is a multi-trillion-dollar problem. Focus on any one of these problems and you can create a massive enterprise, because every one of them will make people's life better. The thing, I think the trick is, don't focus on the symptom, like poverty. Poverty is a symptom. Poverty is not the disease. Poverty is not the root cause. Poverty is the outcome because people don't have education. Poverty is an outcome because people don't have access to the resources that they need. So my point is, poverty is not the root cause of the problem. Poverty is the outcome of the many of the problems. And that is really the key to understanding when you solve something. Are you solving the root cause, or are you solving the symptom, right? So focus on solving the symptoms of the problem, giving the access to resources, giving the people access to the market. They can go. A farmer doesn't have to be poor if they had access without the middleman to be able to go sell their crop at the highest possible price. So you don't have to have they getting a tiny bit and everyone else making the margin in the middle, right? So the idea is to be able to solve many of these problems. And when you do that, not only you help people, you also create a massive enterprise. So I always felt that your success in life is never going to be defined by how much money you have in your bank. It is defined by how many lives you're able to improve. And that is the key. And I think a lot of the things, coming from India, one of the things I found which was very different was, in India, there is people are worried about failures because they worry what will they say. And I've never understood who these they are. If I start a company and if it fails, what will they say? And I asked my mom, like, who is they? I mean, who is they I worry about, right? But it's they you always worry about, right? And I think that comes from what I call self-love. So I say the day you fall in love with yourself is the day world will fall in love with you. And when I say self-love, I meant is not self-conceited. It is simply not looking for someone else's approval. That means I am having this conversation. I'm having a great time. I don't really, and I love you up now. I don't really care. What do you think of me? I'm going to just go out and have a blast because that's what I set out to do. My job is to educate and inspire people to be at their best. And if somebody say, I hate the guy, that's their problem, not my problem.
Okay. Naveen, you related, about a $1 trillion market question to self-love. Beautiful. And, again, like how you defined it, it's in super simple words. You want to create or you want to tap $1 trillion market, solve problems that billions, that affects billions. Solve basic problems. You don't have to create
Yes.
something innovative. Solve basic problems for a lot of people. There you go. There's the market. And then eventually people are not taking opportunities because they're worried about log kya kahenge, and
Yeah, yeah.
wo log kaun hai, no one knows. So self love. Okay, that's where we get to now. I want to understand. I was talking about money. You
Yeah,
are tending me or nudging me to think about wealth because
yeah.
of all of this. What? How do you think about wealth, Naveen?
I think I did say that wealth is about not about the money. It is simply about rethinking about how many lives you improve. To me, the wealth, like, our children, we always taught them that their self-worth is not what they own. Self-worth comes from what they create. What are they doing that actually creates massive improvement in people's life, right? And that's the reason I have three children, and all three of them are just out there solving massive problems, right? So if you Google my oldest son, Ankur, Ankur, and he's now into his third company that is fundamentally solving the problems of middle class people. Our daughter, whose first company she did worked was removing gender bias and hiring, Priyanka, and now she is doing a women's health company to fundamentally change the women's health, right? And she is a Stanford graduate. Our youngest one is a Stanford graduate. So these are all the kids that are dedicating their lives to doing big things, even though they don't have to work for a living. They know. So point is, why do they work so hard? Because I taught them it is not, money is not something, that self-worth is from creation, not from owning. Their money doesn't define their success. And another thing about being an entrepreneur, a lot of people who are listening to it, especially the podcast that you have created this amazing community, people who want to go out and do things. And what they don't realize in life is the first time when there is a tough time that happens, they want to quit. And what I realized in life was, life of an entrepreneur is being alive, right? So how do you know you're alive? First thing you do, you check your heartbeat. What does a heartbeat look like? Up and down and up and down. So ups and downs tells you that you're alive. So if you want to be an entrepreneur, live like an entrepreneur, live like your heartbeat. When it is down, just remember, all you have to do is hunker down and know the next beat is going to be up. And when you are on top of that beat, never get too cocky. Always remember winter is coming, right? And winter will come. So the idea is, you don't want a smooth life. Remember, when you're looking at the heartbeat and it's smooth, what happens? You're dead. Do you want to live like a dead person? So when you're looking for a smooth, stable life, you're looking for a life of a dead person. So why do you want to be alive and live like a dead person? So if you are working on something in a company because you want a stable, smooth life, you're really living like a dead person, right? So to me, here is my simple formula, Abhinav. When you wake up in the morning, if you don't jump out of the bed, whatever you're doing, you should quit it. Because that's the day you should realize that what you're working on is not your life calling. And you don't want simply to work just to have a smooth, stable life. Go out and live your life. There is ups and downs. And you know what? Let other people say what they want. It shouldn't affect you. Fall in love with yourself and live. Be alive. Even if you live for a short time, do something that is meaningful. And I tell people, the best ideas in life, if you know where the best ideas are found, the best ideas are found in the graveyard, because these people never ever did anything. They died with their great ideas. So don't take your best idea and take it to your grave. Live it. And even if you fail, you advance the humanity far enough that someone will come behind you, stand on your shoulder, and take it across the finish line. So keep doing things every single day to push the humanity forward.
It's like you're standing there and just blowing thunder that go out and create. Don't think of wealth in the form of economy. Just like go create an impact, and the
Yeah,
number of people who you impact can be termed as wealth, or can be internally classified as wealth. Now, when people want to create, you said a lot of
yeah,
people don't create, or they
yeah,
they die a stable life, or
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Now, when it comes to creating, could be entrepreneurship, could be
Yeah,
whatever, creating an impact. The problem with it is people fear risk. How do
yeah.
you think about risk?
Well, the risk is imaginary, right? So risk is like, I remember my mom would say, Naveen, you're so bright, you can do anything you want. Sky is the limit. She didn't realize sky doesn't exist. Sky is a figment of our imagination. So she created a limit because she saw a limit in her mind that you can't cross. Now imagine how many of these skies we create in our own life. We say, oh, I can't do it because I come from a village. I can't do it because I come from this caste. I can't do it because I don't have this education. I can't do this because that's not done in my family. I can't do this. And I can come up with 10 reasons, and those are all my skies. I create these skies for me because, right, I come from a village. I came from poverty. I didn't know anything about healthcare. I know nothing about space exploration. To me, these are all curiosity, and that to me is the number one thing. If you want to be alive, always be curious. The day you stop being curious is the day you die. You become a life of a zombie. So I learn everything every day. I'm reading research papers, I'm learning something, I'm going to YouTube and watching something to learn something new. I watch TED Talks, I want exponential technology, I want to learn every single day. And that is what really drives me, is this learning constant. So anyway, we've got last 10 minutes before I have my next call, so let's make a best of it.
Awesome. No, I think we've come towards the end. You've perfectly summed it up. There's a way to check if you're emotionally alive. The emotional pulse
Yeah,
check is ask yourself, are you curious about anything? If the answer is no, then my friend, you've died. But you can resurrect by, how can you resurrect, Naveen?
yeah. And again, it's all about the two words in the English language that I find the most fascinating. One is what if, and one is imagine. Imagine is so powerful. I say, Abhinav, imagine. What happens is all your preconceived ideas go away, and now you're ready to imagine the thing that I tell you. I say, imagine a world where your grandmother is walking uphill and, in fact, are able to climb Mount Everest. Imagine your uncle didn't have to die because they were sick, right? Imagine if this could be possible in a community, the people that you loved were all healthy, playing together. Imagine a world where a a Muslim girl can marry a Hindu person and everybody's celebrating their great, things. Point is, all these imaginations are possible because you can create that world, right? The what if is the most of the time is what if means when someone says this can't be done. And what I say is, what if it could be done? Instead of saying it can't be done, ask yourself, what would it take for it to be done? That means what technologies can be developed for it to be possible. So people say, I can't live on Venus. Let's figure out what would it take for us to live on Venus. Or you
Imagine
have to get
living
a
on
rocket.
Venus.
Imagine living on a wire and figure out what are the things that need to be done and start building them, right? And that to me is really the way to think about it. Curiosity is anything problem you see, you don't see the problem, you simply see the set of solutions that can get there, right? So that to me is really, every time our children used to come to me and say, oh, we can't do this. And I say, now let's sit down and talk about what we need to do for this to be possible, right? Instead of reading them bedtime stories, I'll always say, hey, here are the three things that are unconnected. Tell me a story that connects them together. And I wanted them to see the dots that seem separate, but they're all interconnected. So I would say, tell me a story about a monkey and a tree and an ocean. And now they have to find a way to connect all the three, and that allows them to think creatively what is possible.
So, okay, what seems limited is not limitless, is actually limitless. Your mind has just not
Yes.
tapped into that reality. Okay, beautiful. Just last recap, okay? Naveen,
Yeah.
you gave us a framework of imagine and what if.
Yeah.
Can you give me a few
Yeah.
sentences where it actually plays out so that we, keep it handy?
Well, yeah, I think the main thing is like, I think this imagine gives you a possibilities of what can be done, what limitless thing that looks today our limit can actually be broken like a sky, right? Because what if is about every time you fall into the situation, this can't be, you say, what if it was possible, right? And that changes your perspective on how you look at the world.
Super interesting. Awesome. This was beautiful. Thank you so much, Naveen, for joining me. This was fun. Chat loves it. Audience loves it. This was great. Thank you so much, Naveen. Thank you so much, audience. We'll be in touch
Thank,
until next
thank you,
Wednesday.
Abhinav.